Cryptotrader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.
BITTREX launches its new site and takes on new clients again. Billionaires start buying Bitcoin. Coinbase launches its very own venture fund. And the Royal Bank of India deals a killer blow to crypto in India. Good evening, it's Thursday night, our crypto night, and you're watching Cryptotrader on CNBC Africa. Let's take a closer look at the stories making the headlines. And just a reminder that if you're watching on YouTube, now's a good time to hit the subscribe button. BITTREX launched its new trading platform this week and announced that it would be opening its platform to new clients again. This comes after the company joined several other exchanges late last year in closing its platform to new customers. The company was then concerned about the platform's ability to take on the heavy volumes that were going on in the bull run. BITTREX was amongst the last of the big exchanges to open up their platform to new clients. Joining me from New York to talk about BITTREX and a whole lot of other things is Ari Paul. Ari, BITTREX opened its platform again to new customers. What does this mean for the market and specifically for the tokens on BITTREX?
Well, they're getting a pump today. We're seeing quite a few of them up between 5 and 15%. BITTREX was closed to new subscriptions since December, so there's a lot of pent-up demand for altcoins.
So the BITTREX coins are spiking, but are you looking at anything in particular on the markets?
A few of one story that I think we're seeing play out right now is a lot of interesting launches on Ethereum. So Gnosis went live on mainnet today, and that's built on Ethereum. You're also seeing a lot of projects that are building on ERC 721, non-fungible digital collectibles. CryptoKitties was the first, but now there's a dozen kind of fairly high-profile projects. A lot of them are getting financing right now and kind of starting to build their communities and generate hype. So I think the story of a whole bunch of additional kind of decentralized applications being built on Ethereum is a story that's kind of playing out this month.
So Ari, later on in the show, we'll be talking to Luke Martin, and he uses Ethereum as the indicator for all alts. Do you think that a small spike in Ethereum can take the whole alt market up?
At least a little bit, yeah. Partly just because people think of it the same way you just described. Ethereum is viewed as a bellwether for altcoins. So yeah, Ethereum gets a bid you will get some sympathy gains across the board.
Ari, this market's been moving gradually down since January. Do you think that this is the bottom?
I kind of wish I knew. The pattern in cryptocurrency year after, it's kind of been 2-year cycles, is you get a raging bull market that lasts kind of like what we saw about a year. You get a parabolic advance, and then you get a crash. And then you get kind of generally a slow grind down, and then a leveling off, a new consolidation period, and then you get the start of a new bull market. So we've had kind of a 3-month bear market now. I'm more confident in time than in price.
We had news this week that George Soros' fund would be getting into crypto. Ari, are you buying this billionaires buying Bitcoin story?
Yeah, I mean, it's very real. So Soros is a very famous macro trader, currency trader. He was famous for breaking the Bank of England, for shorting the British pound more than 30 years ago. I don't know if Soros had called Bitcoin a bubble a few months ago. The fact that he wasn't in crypto then, wasn't trading it, wasn't doing anything, and now he's getting in does make me think he's probably bullish at this point, right? Bitcoin, it was a bubble, it collapsed, or short-term bubble at least, it collapsed 70%. So the fact that he's getting in after the 70% decline makes me think he's probably a buyer at this point. I actually bought Bitcoin for the first time in early 2014 because of George Soros, because of his theories. So George, one of his favorite or most prominent ideas is that if an asset should die and it doesn't, that's really, really bullish.
He's known to be the master trader, and he didn't trade the bubble, and he's getting into it now, which must mean that there is some value in the market at these prices. But he's not the only billionaire buying crypto. Do you know of any other billionaires that are buying crypto?
Yeah, so Stevie Cohen has personally invested, and his fund, which I think is called Point 72, what they said is that they've done a lot of work in diligence. The fund is not yet trading, but Stevie Cohen's personally in. Jack Dorsey of Twitter and Square, he said Bitcoin is going to be the currency of the internet, right? He's hugely bullish on Bitcoin. I'm trying to think of other names. I mean, a lot of the Wall Street billionaires and kind of younger, so the oldest ones, people like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, just don't get it. But the billionaires under 50, a huge number of them seem to really appreciate the value proposition.
Now, it seems that Bitcoin must have been a topic of discussion at the Billionaires Golf Club last weekend, because this week saw announcements by two prominent family offices that they were entering crypto. Billionaire George Soros announced that his $26 billion family office was entering into crypto. Adam Fisher, the investment manager for the fund, said he attained approval to trade digital assets a few months ago, but hasn't made any bets quite yet. George Soros joins Jamie Dimon as the latest casualty of prominent figures that have done an about turn on Bitcoin, when he publicly called Bitcoin a classic bubble in January. The Rockefellers weren't going to be beaten to the pot by any of the other fellas, and they announced this week that the family's venture arm, Venrock, had signed an agreement with CoinFund, a cryptocurrency investment fund, and that this would be the vehicle which they use to invest in cryptocurrencies. Later on the show, we're going to get someone from Venrock to get more insight into their investment strategy. Now think about this. The Rothschilds must be super bummed because they bought their crypto in December at the all-time high. But I don't think they're that worried, because if the price doesn't go up, then all they'll do is they'll buy it up themselves. Laura Shin, you're an ex-Forbes reporter, and today you run a podcast called Unchained. We had a series of announcements this week that the Billionaires Club were coming to play on the crypto playground. Why do you think that they've decided to come and play with us now?
I think 2017 was a big proving year for digital assets as an asset class. And I think before then, a lot of people had thought that blockchain technology would be used in financial services to make existing financial institutions more efficient or to enable them to offer new products. But as you saw in 2017, the asset class of crypto assets took off in a major way. And I think people really understood, oh, there's actual value there, and there is like actual utility that these have, or that there's new things that they can offer that existing assets actually don't offer. And so because people saw kind of the substance or the potential within that, I think they got interested in this as an asset class. There's also been some studies that have shown that, at least for now, I think over time this will change, but at least for now, the crypto markets move in a way that is not correlated with existing financial markets. And so in that regard, they make a nice diversifier for a portfolio. And then the last thing I would say is that I think that if you are drawing parallels from the internet, which I know a lot of people in this space are doing, then you can see that at this moment in time, we're sort of at this like very early phase of the growth of this industry. And so if you believe that it's just going to keep growing in the future, then it is a good idea to get in on the ground floor and try to ride the wave up. Right now, we're starting to see some of the players come in to provide good infrastructure solutions, which did not exist really until just recently. The most recent one to come on the market, and I think it might have been the first in this space, was that one of the Bitcoin security companies called BitGo acquired Kingdom Trust, which is what is known as a qualified custodian. And a qualified custodian is necessary to create financial products like ETFs. So that sort of sets the groundwork for more financial products to be built on crypto assets.
So Laura, do you think we've built a big enough infrastructure for the big boys to come play?
Well, I don't know if we're quite there just yet. Like I said, there has been just this one acquisition. I do know of other companies that have announced plans to roll out such solutions. So Coinbase is going to be releasing the Coinbase custody solution. They are, I think, targeting hedge funds and other institutions because the minimum there for that product is $10 million in assets under management. There's another company called Ledger which provides a solution just for everyday consumers where they can keep their private keys on a device. And they're releasing what's called Ledger Enterprise, also for institutions. There's a couple others that are in the works and probably going to be announced later. So I do think this is, like I said, the time when this particular part of infrastructure is being built out.
Laura, let's assume for a second that we do have the right infrastructure to support the bigger funds and that the institutions have got a mandate to invest in digital assets. If you were a fund manager on George Soros' team, where would you be investing?
For me personally, I would just say, okay, the only proven ones really are maybe like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And by the way, nothing that I say is investment advice. So please, nobody take what I say as investment advice. But, if you're going to try to go the safe route, maybe just look at those, which, like I said, they already have quite large user bases and appear to have some traction. Beyond that, I think a lot of smart people in this space would say that the digital assets that function more like money are quite promising. So anything that's in a similar vein, maybe like a Zcash or a Bitcoin Cash or a Litecoin or a Monero, any of those, which are similar to Bitcoin. They're all sort of, they have different features from Bitcoin, but they basically function like digital cash in that, in the same way. Those might be ones that people would be interested in. Zcash and Monero are distinguished by the fact that they have some privacy features, whereas with Bitcoin, all the transactions are transparent and public. And then I think, obviously, right now we're seeing this huge race in what's known as the smart contract space. And Ethereum is the leader out of the gate. Obviously, they have this kind of first mover advantage. Their token functions more like a gas on that platform. So if you want to run a smart contract on the Ethereum platform, you need to pay this like amount of gas, sort of like, you know, if you drive a car and want to run it a certain amount, then you have to pay gas for that. And I think some of the other smart contract platforms that are coming out are trying to distinguish themselves by resolving for problems that maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum have seen. And so we'll see what happens. Like, some of them haven't launched, but, you know, I think everybody knows that probably as the space develops, those will be things people are interested in, money and smart contracts.
Coinbase announced last week that it would be launching its own venture fund designed to back primarily those employees working within Coinbase that want to start their own ventures. The company's president, Asif Hirji, announced the establishment of the new fund last week on CNBC's Fast Money. And though the fund was only $15 million strong, he did say that the company would increase the size of the fund if and when required.
I'm really pleased to say that we're launching today the Coinbase Ventures Fund. So this is our vehicle. It's where we're going to invest off our balance sheet into crypto companies, and let me stress companies, not currencies. Right? We will invest in companies that are in the space where we feel like they're aligned with our mission and aligned with our values. These are going to be seed stage investments. We're very fortunate that Coinbase has been a great place for a lot of entrepreneurs to come already. We've already had a number of alumni start companies, and we have a number of entrepreneurs who come to us to start their companies within Coinbase. And so this is a natural part of our evolution as a company. And so you'll see the fund, you'll see its first investments. In fact, they're going out this week. And we're super excited about the fund.
So why is Coinbase doing this? The answer is very simple, and if you want to know the answer to this question, you've got to ask yourself to look at where the ex-Coinbase employees are today. People like Ulf Carlson-Wee. He was Coinbase's first employee. He left Coinbase to found Polychain Capital, and today Polychain Capital is the biggest fund in the crypto space. He was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine earlier this year, where he was named the crypto magician. You then have people like Charlie Lee. Now, Charlie Lee founded the Litecoin project after he left Coinbase. Now, Dave Hollander, who founded the Dharma protocol, which is a tokenized debt protocol, when he left Coinbase. You have Antonio Giuliano, Nick Tomano, and you also have my favorite ex-Coinbase employee, Linda Shea. Linda is an ex-product manager at Coinbase, and today she started her own fund. Linda, tell us about the business that you've started.
I started a crypto investment firm called Scalar Capital, and we invest in different crypto assets with a long-term focus. We believe that we're very much in the early days of crypto, and when we invest in things, we also want to be helpful to the projects. So we advise them, and we help them as much as possible, making introductions to others in the space. So I very much want to do this as a way of kind of helping to move the industry forward.
Linda, there are a whole lot of you that have left Coinbase to start your own business. And it seems like every time one of you leaves to start their own business, you create bigger successes outside of Coinbase. What is it about Coinbase that fosters these amazing entrepreneurs?
One thing that's really unique about Coinbase is they very much encourage entrepreneurship at the company. So they have hosted these week-long hackathons where everyone can build their own projects, and even afterwards allow you to work on it. Coinbase has also allowed me to work on things on the side, so I was able to advise an Ethereum project. They also just encourage general entrepreneurship and always made sure that you were independent whenever you're doing your work.
And why do you think that Coinbase do this if it ultimately means that they lose their talent?
I think that it keeps employees really happy because there's so many things where I think if you really let employees also be independent and come up with their own ideas, that they'll be really creative and end up doing something that the managers might not have thought of.
Now, Linda, tell me about the day you decided that you're going to resign and you had to walk into Brian's office and tell him that you were going to resign. Play it out for me. What happened?
I was so nervous. So I had been at Coinbase over 3 years, and I was very early on there. And Brian has been one of the most supportive people to me just kind of having career growth at Coinbase. So I was very nervous, but when I ended up telling him, he was so encouraging and excited, and immediately gave me a high five and basically was like, welcome to the club of being an entrepreneur. So I really appreciated that. And since then, he's continued to back me. He's even served as reference check for me when I needed to raise capital. So he's just been so supportive.
Tell me about some of the shooting stars that have left Coinbase and what they're actually doing.
I mean, Olaf is like the famous example and someone that I've really respected. So he was the first employee at Coinbase. He left to go start Polychain Capital. I remember when he left, I actually thought he was being crazy because Coinbase was such a rocket ship. And I felt like him starting a fund in this space just didn't make sense. So he was just always several steps ahead of everyone else. And he was the earliest investors into so many important protocols in the space. So he's someone that I enormously respect and think is critical for this entire space growing. Nick Tomeno is another fund manager in the space. He's written some amazing blog posts about how to evaluate different crypto assets, what to look for in teams. He hosts the Token Summit, which is one of the best conferences out there. So he really gives back to the community as well. There's Antonio, who started DYDX, which is essentially it's a protocol for decentralized. You can do decentralized margin trading. There's also Nadav, who's doing decentralized lending. There's my co-founder, Jordan.
Linda, if there was a key takeout from your time at Coinbase, how would you summarize it?
Oh, that's really hard. I mean, honestly, I think my summary of Coinbase would just be that it was everything of the values of Coinbase. So it was continuous learning, efficient execution, positive energy, and clear communication. So those 4 values, I think, just everyone embedded, and it summarized my experience there.
Now, with the major news stories out of the way, it's time to get into the serious business of trading this horrible bear market. And whenever I don't know which way the market's going to go, I call on the experts. I call on my chartist friends to pull their charts out the drawer, draw those fancy lines, and tell me where the markets are going to go. Richard Hart, we saw a bounce in Bitcoin over the weekend, and many were convinced that this bear market was over and that we were at the beginning of the recovery. But then the price went back down. What is this market doing?
There's a saying that you don't have much time to sell the top, and you don't have much time to buy the bottom. So if it's true that you only spend a couple minutes, maybe a couple hours at the very top or the very bottom, it doesn't make a lot of sense that you're going to linger around at the same price area in between 6,700 and 7,000 for multiple days. That's not like any bottom that I'm used to. I'm used to capitulation, big red candle down, and recovery, a lot of volume, big green candle up. And we're not having any of those things. The volume has entirely died off. This does not feel like a bottom to me.
Rich, we had great volume earlier in the year, but now the volume has dried up. Where is everyone?
Well, the main reason people buy speculative instruments is to make money. And if the price stops going up, well, there's not a whole rush or whole reason to dive right in. And the main reason people sell speculative instruments is because they think the price is going to go down, or because they really need the money. Say it's tax time. So we had a lot of selling before this price point. A lot of people say it was for taxation. And if there's no reason to buy it and you don't really need the money, there's no reason to sell it, the volume just dies off.
So Rich, I'm looking at this chart you sent me, and there's a solid green line that goes all the way along the chart. What is this green line?
So in technical analysis, what used to be resistance will turn into support, and what you'll have is a retest. So you'll have resistance holding you down, resistance holding you down. You'll keep testing it. You'll finally break over it, and then you'll have the retest where it drops to see, are we really going to stay over this price? And then that's your support for the rest of the trend. And right now, the line that we're at, it was support at 58.55. It was support at recently the 6,000s. And it was the resistance all the way back in the bubble of 2014. So that same line, if you draw it, is the resistance from the bubble of 2014, come all the way today. We broke through it at 5,000. We retested it at the 6,000s and high 5,800s, and now we're seeing whether it's going to continue to be support and we can continue a trend on a higher degree of inclination, or whether we fall through it and die. which would take us probably to 5,000, 3,000 multi-year bear market type of territory. It's a very important line for the bulls to hold. The most important line on the chart, really.
So Rich, that was my next question. What happens if we break the green line going downwards?
If that line breaks and the bulls can't defend 6,500, and remember they have to defend a higher price constantly because that line is pointed up. So every week or two you've got to defend about $70 extra of price. So 2 weeks from now it'll be $70 to $100 higher that they have to defend. They have to defend 6,600. If they can't defend that line, we really should go down to 5,000 and then maybe a bounce, 3,000, probably the bottom. In general, if bubble pops, you get 80% decline.
Let's talk about the more positive scenario. If we look at this chart, what scenario would convince you that we've broken out of the bear pattern?
Well, it's pretty simple. You just draw a line from all the tops. You got to get over one of those lines and stay there for a while. So 11.7 was a line that we got over, fell through, went back up to retest and died. Did a little double top there. Then we tried something similar in the 9,000. Then we tried something similar at 8. Now that line is about, I think, 74, 7,500 because it's, every time passes, that line gets lower and lower. It gets harder and harder to get over it and stay over it. If we can get over 74, 7,500, stay there for a while, sure, we could have a new uptrend. We could do the double bubble. We can, go way high. I don't mind it, but you do have to start breaking those downtrend lines and staying over them instead of obeying every one and falling right down.
So Rich, the message is loud and clear. You're not buying at these prices.
You should be in cash now. If you should be in cash now because you can't predict. The books are thick, but for some reason the price still moves a lot off of very low volume.
Luke Martin, or Venture Coinist as he's known on Twitter, what are you looking for in this bear market?
Yeah, so what I'm looking at, a lot of people are waiting for Bitcoin. I'm still seeing calls for 3K or 1K or for an extended bear market, something like 2014. I personally don't think that's going to happen, but what I'm more focused on, instead of looking at Bitcoin in that $1,000 move down or up, I'm more focused on moving into alts right now. I think they're priced very attractively, and we might be seeing a trend reversal right now.
Now, Luke, what makes you think that the trend reversal is going to happen now?
Something that I like to do is I like to look at the channel of Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and I don't look at it just to move into Ethereum. I use it as really a gauge for how all other alts are priced. So when I'm looking at that chart, I have a channel printed out and it shows whether or not ETH and most other alts are valued cheap or expensive relative to Bitcoin. Right now we're kind of in the bottom third of that channel, and it also just bounced on a nice fib level. So I'm looking at alts across the scene that are all along that support of December 5th, December 7th. December 5th through December 7th is an important date because that's when the alt run really started at the end of last year.
Luke, I'm looking at this chart and I'm specifically looking at the fib indicator on the chart. Do you think that this is the turning point?
Yeah, so I'm looking at that run up. That was from the beginning of December. It was kind of a really shortened alt cycle, if you want to call it that. And it ran up until about the mid-channel line, and that was in January. So if I draw a fib line from that swing low to the swing high, looking at possible levels of a reversal, we did just bounce on the 61.8% level, and this could be that trend reversal we're looking for. Regardless, I think alts are all priced very attractively. There's a bit of a disparity in terms of large caps. I think they're not priced as attractively, but looking across the space, like I said, there's some alts sitting right at that December 5th, December 7th low.
Okay, so Luke, give me some examples of the coins that you're looking at.
I don't want to dive into too many names specifically and kind of pump them up, but I was looking at, there's a good amount of coins on BITTREX, and it's also notable that BITTREX, like you said earlier, just announced that they're opening registration to new clients. So I think a lot of BITTREX coins, kind of along that all-time low that haven't jumped yet, we've seen some movements this morning that haven't jumped yet, are attractive.
Now, Luke, you're looking at the Ethereum chart and using it as an indicator for all altcoins. But some would argue that some of the ICOs that raised Ethereum started to sell the Ethereum when the price came down to protect their runway. Do you think that ETH is still a good indicator for all altcoins?
Yeah, and I've heard that argument before. I heard it last time when Ripple kind of took its spot. But I think that's more of kind of a lagging indicator. I think once ETH and alts can make this resurgence, once the trend reverses, I don't think people will doubt it. It's still the second biggest coin. That's what I'm going to continue to use. And whether or not it's a perfect gauge, it doesn't matter. It just gives me an indication of whether things are valued expensive or cheap. There's no fundamental way to intrinsically value these things, so that's why I use the technicals.
Now, later this month, we're going to be in the East Coast, and then we're going to go to the West Coast for two of the biggest cryptocurrency conferences in the States. We're going to be starting off in Miami, and we will be covering the Blockchain Nation conference, which will be taking place on April 25th and April 26th. This conference will have some of the biggest names in crypto, including Damon John from Shark Tank, John McAfee, and Tone Vays. If you can't make the East Coast, join me on the West Coast, where we'll be covering the Crypto Investment Summit, which is hosting some of the biggest names in crypto. And in fact, we're going to be shooting a whole episode live from the stage. Joining me from Los Angeles to tell us more about the Crypto Investment Summit is Alon Goren. Alon, you're running the conference in Los Angeles. Tell our viewers what they can expect at the conference.
Absolutely. It's going to be the largest crypto event on the West Coast of the United States. We've got amazing speakers like Ran. We're going to be doing the show live on stage at the conference. We're going to have great other speakers like Tim Draper and Vinny Lingham and Bill from Abra and Scott Walker and David Seymour. It's going to be a really huge event with some of the biggest crypto luminaries.
Alon, how many people are you expecting at the event?
We're expecting well over 4,000 people. It's at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Starts opening party, networking party April 30th, and it's May 1st and 2nd all day long.
Alon, other than the fact that we'll be there and we'll be shooting a show live on the stage, why should people come to this conference?
Absolutely. So we make a very concerted effort to make sure that the conference is filled with the best companies and actual investors who want to invest in those companies. And separate from that, we create a atmosphere, and we create a whole schedule that's filled with topics that people want to hear. So we don't just throw people on and let them decide what 10 minutes they want to talk about. We put them into panels, let them argue, get some great content and things that you can't just Google search.
Alon, if our viewers want more information, where can they go?
Go to cryptoinvestsummit.io and you'll find out more information. Or if you follow Ran on Twitter, we'll make sure to give him some promo codes.
Wait, I don't want promo codes. I actually want to give my viewers free tickets to your event. So can I give away 5 free tickets to my viewers for the event?
Absolutely. We'll make sure to take care of you and your listeners.
So that's it. If you want to join me at the end of April at both of these conferences, I'll be giving away free tickets on my Twitter. All you have to do is tell me whether you want to join me in Miami, LA, or if you're like me and you don't have a day job, join me at both. That's all the time we have for tonight. Let's hope that this tax deadline thing on the 17th of April brings some reprieve to these depressed markets. Until then, we'll be keeping an eye on all the breaking news. If you're not following me on Twitter, now's a great time to start because I'm constantly tweeting about what's happening in the markets. Until next week, my friends, trade well.
Cryptotrader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.